please welcome back to the stage your host, Ore Aduba.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. How's your day been so far? Been good? Yes? Feeling inspired? Are you feeling inspired, everybody? That's what I want to hear. I know you're probably doubled up on the menu out there. Like, it was after my second main course I realized this shirt is too tight for me. But we're all learning today. Some great workshops out there. I'm sure you enjoyed them. You enjoyed the catering from Curb, and hopefully you made a new connection or two as well. Thing is, if you thought the morning was good, we have an even bigger and better afternoon in store for all of you. I am absolutely thrilled to share that first up, we have a panel stacked with 3 of today's leading entrepreneurs who are going to share their journeys with all of you and hopefully leave you with some lessons to learn along the way as well. After that, we will close the day with the multi-talented Sarah Beanie, Britain's best home and house to home presenter as well, and founder of 2 different businesses, but we'll get to all of that a little bit later. So, with that, let's keep the excitement going and introduce our dynamic panel for you this afternoon. These 3 individuals have proven through their inspiring stories that anything really is possible when you pursue your passion. No matter what the costs, they defy the odds to ultimately create successful, thriving businesses. One of them channeled one of her own frustrations, the loneliness that comes with being a stay-at-home mother, into a platform called Peanut, designed to connect a mobile generation of like-minded mothers. Another co-founded Monzo and Starling, banks that have become household names, and I'm sure there's plenty of you in here who've got a card from those banks in your back pocket right now. And lastly, this individual is the co-founder of a Mexican street food chain you'll know called Oaxaca. She is also the 2005 winner of the BBC's MasterChef. She's a regular writer for The Guardian magazine and has written and co-edited 7 cookery books. The talent you can feel in the room, but you'll be about to see it very soon as well. So please welcome to the stage CEO and founder of Peanut, Michelle Kennedy, co-founder of Monzo, Jason Bates, and co-founder of Oaxaca and chef and food writer Thomasina Myers. Give him a round of applause, please. Have a seat. Have a seat. I'm so sorry, Michelle. I've just realized that. No. You stay right here. I just thought I can't see your face. Your side profile is lovely, but I just want to make sure that we've got a little bit of straight on as well. Now we're all the more of an arch. And now I look at it. You probably already noticed as well that Jason didn't get the check and tartan squares memo, and I'm so sorry for that. So if there's anybody out there who would be willing to lend him their top half for the that would make you top half topless. We'd be in a breach there. So our panel, everybody, come on, give them a round of applause. Okay, everybody. So I cannot wait, and these lot cannot wait to sort of divulge into some of the trials and tribulations and peel away some of the layers that got you to where you are today. And it seems that a lot of you, the start of the chapter that's led you here, were quite scary moments. For you, Michelle, I know you were the deputy CEO of Badoo, which is a huge, thriving, bustling social networking site. Why on earth would you think it would be a good idea to leave the comfort and security of a high-powered, wonderful job to do it on your own?
Crazy. It's a really good question. Still working that out. I had been working for Badoo for a long time, and I suppose that was my kind of first foray into really working in tech. I loved what I did. I still am very proud of the company and what I was achieving there and what they continue to achieve. I'd been part of Bumble, and that was the first time I'd had the opportunity to be part of something from day one, as opposed to Badoo, which was already huge when I joined. So Badoo was much more about a growth story. Bumble was definitely its own kind of starting from scratch, and that was exciting. And I suppose the ultimate reality was I wasn't dating in my personal life. And I was starting to get to the point in time where my friends weren't either. And so the relativity of me to the product and the connectivity of me to the product was kind of reducing. And then I had Finn, my little boy, and felt like that was the perfect time to start my own business as a new mum.
I mean, daunting enough time taking on that job of being a new mum. So was that, because I know my wife, and she is really inspired by you, being a new mum, stay-at-home mum, and you've got enough on your plate, especially in those early days. So what was the catalyst that made you think, okay, well, do you know what? I can make something of this, even though I'm at the end of the tether.
I went back to work, actually, after Finn, and that's when we started working on Bumble. So it was the catalyst was Finn going to preschool.
Okay. And
Me feeling like I was even more remote than ever from all of the women who were doing the same thing as me, because I was dropping him at nursery, dashing to work. I didn't have any connectivity. I didn't know what on earth I was doing. Everyone was talking about schools and applications, and I was like, what? And I also wasn't sure, like, how was everyone else managing it? And, you know, no one else was running in like Clockwork Orange with one eye of mascara and running out. Everyone else seemed to have their lives in order, and I just felt I needed to speak to them to find out how other women were working through it. So I think it was that moment where I was like, okay, now is the time.
Yeah.
And also, if I didn't do it, I just had that horrible feeling that someone else was going to, and then I'd always be that person down the pub on a Friday night, like, I had that idea.
Yeah. Well, 90% of the world, one here, is that guy or girl who goes, oh, I've got a great idea. I'll just leave it for 10 years. No one will do it. Oh, someone's taken it. Put it on Dragon's Den. But no, I can't wait to find out a bit more about how you go from an idea and turn it into a business. But for you, Jason, you've co-founded not one, but 5 new businesses. Stop it. Just a couple. Tell us about your entrepreneurial story and where your sparks came from.
Yeah, I think that career stories in general are made up. They're all made up in retrospect. So I think I could probably tell you this great narrative stretching back of how it was always meant to be, but I think that's mostly rubbish, you know. I think through my career, and out of the 5, actually probably 8 businesses I've started, 3 failed abysmally. 2 are doing okay, 1's a unicorn. So you know, it's interesting in that spectrum. But I've always been looking for, I guess, what's the next opportunity, or where am I, what could I do? And at the same time, I think I've been growing a better self-awareness of what I'm good at. Mm-hmm. And I think that combination of understanding me better and through trial and error, finding out what I'm really not good at all, is kind of leads me to where I can create value. And that, combined with the opportunities that come along, I guess led to this approach.
So I guess, because I'm sure plenty of people here will understand that, you feeling like you are almost finding out who you are through business. But but where did the drive come from, I guess, because it's like we know, it ain't easy to start one up, especially if you've had failure. So what was it that you kept me going and going, I'm not done, I want to do another one, that was great, but I can do better?
I guess it's just not settling. You know, I always knew that I wanted to do work that I enjoyed, work that would have a big impact, and work that would, you know, bring wealth, bring money.
Yeah.
And I could do one of those pretty easily. I could probably do 2, but to actually do 3, that's hard work. Mm-hmm. So it was always sort of trying to find my way along where I could put myself in a place where I loved the people that I work with. It was a big, impactful challenge. It didn't feel like work because it was what I was good at naturally, and there was a market need. There, you know, just as Michelle was saying, you go and talk to people, and you felt that this was something worth taking on.
Yeah. For you, Thomasina, working in food was I've been told it was a career that you tried and spent a long time not doing, despite it being your passion. So who was the person? Because there was one particular person who said, you've got to do this, and how did that change, and why were you staying away from the thing you love doing?
Well, I think, you know, I went to a school that was quite academic, and cooking definitely, when I started, wasn't as cool as it was. It's definitely, you know, now it's lots of people want to get into food. It's a really exciting, dynamic industry, and there's lots of different ways you can get involved, especially with tech on the scene too. But you know, 20 years ago, it was a very different story. And I think it was just something that it didn't really occur to me that it was a viable career. And then it was that lovely Clarissa Dixon-Wright who I met backstage at a show, and she was Clarissa, lovely Clarissa, who was we were doing a catwalk show, which but she was modelling a barber coat, and I was modelling something different. And anyway, we chatted backstage because I'd watched her on Two Fat Ladies. She was just so great. She was her own woman, and I love food and I love cooking. But more importantly, for me, she was at 21 the youngest female to make the bar. And so there was this very bright woman who'd given it all up for a career in food, which kind of in my head didn't really make sense. And then she kind of slapped me around when she broke down those myths, basically. I think if you're passionate about something, you're going to do well at it. And she said, well, if you love food so much, why aren't you working in it? And it was so obvious when someone like her came up with it. Mm-hmm. But up until then, I had the kind of the school heritage of, they churned us out to be bankers, and my father was like, oh, you're great at maths, you should go and do an accountancy course. And often I think trying to find your career is often breaking away from those shackles of your upbringing anyway, or what you put on yourself.
So would you describe, were you happy before food became your work, or were you always?
No, I was failing at lots of different. I remember I was working in Soho at the height of the dot-com boom, being a digital strategist, and I was really bored. And I kept thinking, why am I so bored by this? It was. I guess it was the marketing. It's not really me, and it was this idea of like marketing and as something that I wasn't actually actively involved in. I kind of like doing stuff. I don't like just chatting about stuff. So. Although it was digital and it seemed quite exciting and everyone was so excited about it, it was just, I just couldn't get excited about it. So I thought that was a sign that I'm maybe a flawed character.
So which came first then, the meeting and the chat with Clarissa and the thought and you started working food, or MasterChef? Which was the catalyst?
So it was Clarissa was first. So Clarissa really did change my life because she got me focusing that food was a viable career. And that was like someone waving a magic wand over me. Just like, what, you mean I can do what I really love and that can be my work? That was just like amazing. Because as we've discussed, if you're interested and engaged in what you're doing, you're so much better at it. And then after that, I kind of did a little cookery course. I worked in a food shop. I traveled around Mexico for a bit because I thought the food was really great. And then I came back, and that's when MasterChef happened.
Wow. Okay. It's everybody in here will have faced their own share of challenges. That's kind of what we're here. Without a challenge, you're not going to reach the top of the mountain. But for you, Jason, you kind of had to upset the whole sort of hierarchy of banking in the country in a way. And as I've done my research, I like to think of you as the William Wallace of banking, because you're really stuck it to freedom, all of that. But now in Starling and Monzo, you've got these two businesses that are really setting the agenda in this new era of banking. So how was it that you pushed through and found the other side of what were already the establishments?
So I think anyone who creates a great business isn't focusing on what they will do to the rest of the industry. They're, in the end, looking at what end customers need. Like, what are the brutal realities of customers' lives? Yeah. And ultimately, when you look out there, people are struggling. They have to make ends meet. They have to get from month to month. They have to pay their bills. They have to work all of this stuff out in themselves. And because mass market banks are where they are, they're a great place to store your money, and they'll tell you where your money's gone to, and they'll let you make payments. But they're not in the job of helping you with your day-to-day finance and working out whether 3 weeks in you've got enough to last you to the next payday. So across digital, or the big digital shift in my eyes, is this move from commodity products to intelligent services. And those services are based on what do customers need, because they're having to do all of this work themselves. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a case of let's look at banks and say, like, how do we destroy them or how do we take them on? It was a case of going out and you'd say, excuse me, sir, what do you think of your bank? And he'd say, it's fine. Oh, okay. Well, if you were going to take a few weeks off and, head off on holiday, and I was going to look after your personal finances for you, and I'll do exactly what you do, what do you do? And he's like, well, I guess I check if I've been paid. Great, starts on payday. Banks don't start on payday, they do calendar months. And you check if you've been paid or if you haven't, and banks don't tell you if you haven't been paid. Oh, now this is interesting. And then my direct debits and standing orders all line up. Well, why do you do that? So I know how much money I've got to live on for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
Oh, but then there's always that quarterly, annual, monthly bills that all hit in June, and suddenly I'm on baked beans for the rest of the day. So the more questioning you got into not can I improve your bank, but your day-to-day financial life, the more you could find those areas that digital actually provides those intelligent services for. So that was always the intent, that actually you want to deliver better service for people, and that's possible.
So you kind of had the cause and effect. And I guess for you, Michelle, you had worked in social networking and a big business in that way, but to go into the mother space, I mean, you have the research on first-hand experience, but that must have been quite a scary thing to go, okay, I've got to start this from scratch. I know a small network in my own community of mums, but how did you start building that together and creating your own strategy, your own sort of business plan?
It was the single most scary thing I have ever done, because apart from being a mom, obviously, I actually knew nothing about the space at all, and I knew that I was creating a social platform, but ultimately dating and the KPIs that you're looking at are so completely different to building something which is much more of a kind of strong ties connection versus looser ties, we shall say. It just is a completely different product, and it was that process of asking questions. So I started with asking one woman, and then if she, whatever answers I had from her, I'd ask her to introduce me to another, and that one to introduce me to another. So by the time that I'd kind of gone through this process of speaking to a couple of hundred women, I at least knew that I had 200 women who would go and test Peanut when I'd built it, who would firstly feel really in love with the product because they'd been part of the journey at the start, but secondly would be brutally honest about how they felt it was performing and what they liked and what they didn't like. So I think that whatever your research path is, that should inform almost your route to market, because then you're going to have that loyalty and that belief in what you're building. Because ultimately what you cannot do is build a product for you, right? If you're just building a product for you, then it's just not going to work. You have to build it with a community or with a certain type of person in mind. And so I suppose it was that kind of referral basis that led to the network and led to the community part. But yeah, making that change was very difficult. And there are a million people who will tell you, but you don't know this industry. You really know that industry. Why don't you do that again, Michelle? Because you're really good at dating. So why don't you do that product again? Versus doing something new that you don't know. And the only way to overcome that is to have done your research so thoroughly that whatever anyone throws at you, you can be like, yeah, I hear you, but actually, let me tell you all the reasons why this is the right thing, and I'm the only person who can do it.
Yeah, and how was it that you went from here to here? Because I presume none of these things happen slowly and happen overnight and boom. So with all those people telling you you're in the wrong thing, you're doing the wrong thing, how did you get yourself through those? Okay, it's still bubbling away here. I'm still talking about, I know what I'm doing, I've got the foundation, but with the struggle that would have been coming like a torrent back, how did you push through to make sure that it had the potential, it could fulfill the potential you knew it had?
I'm really stubborn. Don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing, but it's almost like that perversity of someone telling you you can't do something. You're like, I think I can. So there was an element of that. Also, I could just see it, and I felt that the timing there was something about the timing. Timing is everything, right? We could have done a million of the products that we've worked on subsequently at a different time, and they would have failed. It's just when the market is ready for something, and it felt like the conversations around women were changing, and the conversations around kind of the interactions between women were changing, and so I had to keep pushing the fact that I could be at the front of that rather than at the back of it. So I suppose there was that kind of belief system as well. And the stubborn. And
You have to be. If
Yeah.
You've got to know that it's going to turn into something. Otherwise, why have you started it?
right. And the final thing was I'd left my really nice role to do this, and I had a lot on the line, right? And if it didn't work, I just didn't want to have the pride element. I didn't want to have egg on my face. I didn't want people to be like, oh yeah, she used to be, yeah, that's a shame. Like I had so much like on the line, and I wanted to show that I could do it, but I also wanted to show all the women who I'd spent all that time talking to that I could do it, so that they could do it, because they were talking about their own ideas. And so I suppose I had so much vested in it. It's that belief system. Like you just are like, okay, I have to give it everything, and I don't care what other people say.
What year was it around that you started up?
2017.
2017. Okay, so it was right in that time,
Yeah.
that conversation. It seems, I bet you would have had, Thomasine, I bet you would have had so many ex-colleagues from your previous career that would have gone, you're going to start a restaurant business. Sure. What is she like? And who's laughing now? But it's almost quite, to see you here and talk to you now, to know that you were there at day one of Oaxaca, it seems strange, because I'm sure I'm not the only person that thinks of Oaxaca as just being a complete staple of the restaurant market and of the high street. So if you could just tell us a little bit about how you laid the first bricks, how you, after your trip to Mexico that you sort of touched upon, to go, okay, well, I've got some skills, I'm going to actually build a house now.
Well, I think it is that it's that belief that there's something missing, and you know that you can probably fill that gap. And I think when I went to Mexico first, I was 18. And I remember like running around the country, drinking lots of tequila, but eating everything I could, because since the age of 6, I was kind of obsessed with food and cooking. And I just remember eating at all these street food stalls, thinking, this food is like insane. How come it's so good? How come I don't know anything about Mexican food? I thought Tex-Mex was Mexican. I literally had no conception of what Mexican food was about. And then I went back to London, 18, thinking, great, I'm going to go back to London, I'm going to eat Mexican, it's this whole new cuisine I found, it's so cool. I got to London, I was just like, that's weird, there's no Mexican anywhere. That's like, London's a melting pot, like there's everything in London, how come there's no Mexican? And then like waiting, thinking someone's going to come and bring some Mexican food, and then no one did. And then I finally got into food thanks to Clarissa, and then I finally went back to Mexico, and this time I went for a year, because I was just like, was that a figment of my imagination?
Yeah.
Because I really remember that food being great, but maybe that was just my memory playing tricks on me. Nostalgia or something. So then I got a job opening a cocktail bar. That was just my excuse to get back there. And then I did a lot of traveling around the areas. And it's like China or India. It's a huge regional cuisine where from state to state and village to village, the food varies dramatically. And it's one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. So the food, the varieties of tomatoes and corn and beans. I mean, there are like 200 varieties of chilies. Corn comes in black and red and blue and white and gold. It's just insane, the ingredients, which is why chefs get so excited now by Mexico. So then, having spent that year in Mexico, and with all my group around me in Mexico City, all my mates I made, we'd go on these taco crawls and search out the best taqueria in Mexico City. And they were from Mexico and America and France and Spain. And I was like, it's not just me who loves this food. They all love it too. So I just felt like when I got back to London, there is this massive gap. And why not just go for it? I mean, I definitely, after we opened, did question that a lot. Like, what was I thinking? Why did I think I could do this? You definitely have those moments when you start something, those kind of dark moments when you're just like, I was insane to think I could do this. But then there's a drive behind it, this belief. We were almost evangelical when we opened. Our average age, like any startup's really young, right? We were like 24, our average age. I was like the oldest. And but you've just got this core belief that you're doing something exciting and new, and you're filling a gap, you're filling a need.
Yeah.
Like, no one knows about Mexican food. We've got to give them the soft corn
Give
tortilla.
the people what they want.
Yeah.
And I agree with that sort of naivety. It's like you look back and you think, wow, there's so much I didn't know. Like, what the hell were you doing? Contacting the FCA and the PRA to ask about a banking license. Well, it seems like it's doable.
Right.
Anyone who'd worked in the industry for a long period of time knew how much work that was going to be.
Yes.
But because you had that belief, there was a gap, and it's like, well, let's do it. Away you go.
I think hindsight could be a really bad thing if you had it.
Yeah.
Because you'd never go into these things if you knew how much work and the obstacles and all that. But because you're kind of young and foolish and passionate, it just kind of gets you through.
It's kind of like parenthood. Why on earth would we do that if we... Oh, no, because it's wonderful and look at you and you're everything I wanted.
Apart from sleep.
Apart from sleep. Who needs that? But I want to talk about competition because for all of you, it's such an important part of business and in a way seen as a negative, but without competition, there's no struggle, there's no challenge, and you can't achieve. And for you, Jason, because I know you set up your businesses based on new tech and digital, banking, I mean, like you are scaling Everest and Kilimanjaro at the same time. So how is it that you, now having set them up, you stay ahead of that game? Because it must be like a real-life matrix of competition that you're trying to get through.
So banking has traditionally been a commodity business. You know, ultimately, do you have a red card, a blue card, a green card in your wallet? Because they all offer the same thing. So they have to get you with a teaser rate or a nice campaign or a big Shire horse or something or other to try and get you into the door. But actually, the change from digitized business, like we'll take your statement, we'll put it on a phone. We've done digital. That's it. Great. And I was at a dinner party once, and I remember this lady saying to me, she was saying, what do you do? And I said, oh, digital banking. And she looked away, and she looked back, and she said, my bank has like an app. You know, it's like, it's been done. And there is that feeling. But that's just not true. These sort of services that we're thinking about, the way of doing business, the operating model, the way of making money is just different in this new world. So it's almost like creating another category. It's not that you're going against every other bank. It's you're trying to define a new way of doing banking. And so I do stuff now in Hong Kong, in the US, and in mainland Europe. And you see the same trends, whether they're in the high street or in banking or across the world. We've gone from owning albums to buying albums on iTunes to streaming. And that third jump is from digitized to digital. And that's the difficult jump that every incumbent has, and that's where every startup's focusing.
So again, I guess what you're trying to say is that actually it wasn't necessarily a brick wall of a challenge. It was kind of, you were all surfing the same wave at the same time.
Look, no one knows. Like, you start one of these things, and none of these were bygone conclusions. It's great to look back in retrospect and say, oh yes, we were just so clever. But there was, really tough times at the start of, is this going to work? You're acquiring customers in traditionally a very sticky market. It was a tough ask.
Yeah.
So you have a hypothesis, you have an idea, you strongly believe in, and that's what you pin your colors to. And ultimately, if that works, great. If it doesn't, then you've maxed out your credit cards, and Mrs. Bates isn't happy because we're suddenly a bit poorer than we were.
And we want to keep Mrs. Bates happy.
Oh, we
happy
definitely have
Bates,
to keep
happy
Mrs.
life.
Bates happy.
And for you, Michelle, because again, in working in tech, the competition is so huge. And I know you're a huge champion of female entrepreneurs, but obviously within that industry, you're in a minority. For you, do you face that as a really steep wall that you're going to have to work really hard to climb, or do you actually see it as an opportunity and a gap?
I think you have to look at it as an opportunity, because if you go in with the mindset that I'm up against it, that is written all over you. It's written in how you present. It's written in what you say. It's written in the defensiveness of your answers, all of those things. And there will always be idiots. I was going to use an inappropriate word there. There will always be people out there who don't behave correctly, right? And the art and the skill is finding out who they are before you have to waste your time, because you have to be selfish with your time. Your time is your commodity, and we never have enough of it, right? So the one thing that you can't do is kind of cut corners on doing your research. And so if there are 3 other founders who tell you don't talk to that person because generally speaking, they haven't got a brilliant track record, don't speak to them. Go and find the people who are genuinely either looking at your market or supporting women or whatever it might be. So I think you have to look at it as an opportunity. For me, I always just felt like the best way to disarm people was be exactly what they thought I wasn't. And I used to be a lawyer in my former life, and I always remember there was one female partner at the firm that I worked for, and she said, "You never make the tea." when someone comes in for a meeting, you never make the tea because you have to own the meeting. If they want tea, let them make their own tea. You never make it. And I suppose it was that kind of mindset where I was like, okay, and I kind of followed through. So whenever I was going into an investor meeting or a pitch, why would I ever think that it was a disadvantage to be me? They don't know what it's like to be me, and they don't know what it's like to kind of have my life experience. So there are always those annoying moments where someone will say, yeah, do you know, I don't know, let me ask my wife, assistant, secretary, whatever. And that is tiresome, right? Because there is a moment where you're like, you could just look at the market, and you could just look at all of these, like this presentation of data and make a judgment based on that. And you know, the real good ones are the ones who already have done that before you've come in, and that's why you're talking to them. So it's there, and I think there's a level of confidence that we need to have as women to go in and think, this isn't my disadvantage. I'm here because I have the right to be here, either because I've got a brilliant idea or because I've got great data to show how well this product is doing, or whatever it might be. And whatever it is that makes you feel confident about what you're doing, there's a reason you started doing this in the first place. Like, tell yourself that before you go in.
You are your own best asset, essentially, with that and your research and the work that you've put in. And Thomasina, for you,
Got me.
we haven't, absolutely you are. But we haven't got much time, and I really want to ask you about what made you think that anything is possible to all three of you before the end. But for you, because in food, the competition is so high, because the rise in delivery apps, the rise in, and the way the high street is changing, there's so much that you have to react to, or do you just focus on you and knowing that what you do and having that same core belief that you started out with?
I think you have to look around you at what's going on. I mean, particularly with food, it's so exciting what's going on. So, you know, if you love food, you're wanting to go out and try the food in the latest openings and what people are doing around you. It's part of what I love about what I do. It's the thrill of it and the, you know, let's go and try someone else's, you know, whatever they're cooking. So I think that is just inbuilt in it all. And I think also that it is incredibly competitive now. Everyone in this country has the pleasure of being able to eat better food than they could 20 years ago. But that's really good, because complacency is a death to any entrepreneur or any business. And I think if there was no competition, I mean, that's what we had, right? There was very little competition when we started.
Yeah. And
the average food on the high street, I would say, wasn't that good. So now the food is great, and it just makes you want to be better. And especially with digital, I mean, my business partner and I love breaking molds. So I think, you know, we were, I think the first people to put street food in a restaurant scenario. We were the first people to do a kind of pay app with your phone. We tested it with a startup. We like being ahead of the curve with tech, and it interests us, and it's fun, and we don't want to ever be that thing where you're an incumbent, that mentality where you get so big that you can't be nimble and agile and excited by what's going on out there. Because the whole joy of being an entrepreneur and working is that you feel, even though on the outside you might be looking older and older, and that, you know, the millennials might kind of overlook you a little bit, but on the inside you're as excited as ever about everything going on around you, and that's what keeps you young. So, you know, I look to the 80-year-olds who are still wearing leather trousers and running out and busting arse. You know, Karl Lagerfeld is a great, you know, example, who was just at the head of his game, and it doesn't matter how. So if you're still excited by what you're doing, and interested in what's going on around you, and excited by the potential, then I think that's great, because you just bring that into your workplace.
Yeah.
As long as, you know, you don't get too distracted by too many things. You know, you've got to stay focused.
It's a really good point, because you could look at a room like this and think competition, but actually that's why we bring everybody together and use it as an amazing networking event. We are minus 1 minute, which means we've gone over. So quickly, because... Right, quickly... if we can, what is the moment in your careers, if you can think about it and summarize it in about 12 seconds each, that you thought anything is possible, starting with you, Jason?
I always think anything is possible. Like, generally, I'm that person. But that always has to be balanced with, like, the brutal realities of, like, where you are now. It's that, you know, clouds and dirt thing. It's like you have to have the big vision. You have to believe it's possible, otherwise you wouldn't do it. But if you're just, you know, living in this cloud cuckoo fantasy land, it's never going to happen. So it's always that balance with continuing to have that vision while at the same time taking that first step.
Michelle, anything is possible. When was it?
Walking into a park and someone coming up to my husband, who I make wear peanut sweatshirts wherever we go, obviously, saying, "Oh my God, did you make that app? I love that app." That's my terrible American accent. And she had just moved from New York to St. John's Wood, and I was like, that was it. And
That's
it's possible.
huge. That's amazing. Thomasina.
I just think life is incredibly exciting and it's full of opportunity. And if you look around and get excited by it, then things come up. And if they really excite you and if you've got a good feeling about them, then you get that feeling that maybe I can give this a go.
Yeah. Guys, I am sure you will agree, an incredible, dynamic, thoughtful, and incredibly successful panel. Please give them all a round of applause. Thank you, all three of you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Let's rise, because we need to take the applause in, and I will ask you to step away. I won't get to see it. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Take care. An incredible group of panelists, right? All agree, and I really think that their courage, you guys, you come on, you move the furniture around. It's like stepping away from the house for 2 weeks. I come home, my wife has changed everything. Seriously, courage and creativity and perseverance from all of those three, showing that if you can achieve your dreams, and I think we all heard that. And it's easy for all of us to reflect on our experiences, I'm sure, after hearing that, because, well, we can all relate. And there is something that really has to be said about sticking to your vision in order to achieve and sometimes even exceed your dreams. So, seriously, huge thank you to Michelle, to Jason, and to Thomasina. They can still hear us, so we might as well give them another ripple. Okay, on to our final speaker, and she needs no introduction, but she's come all this way, so we'll do it anyway. Renowned property expert, businesswoman, and TV presenter known for fronting Channel 4's Double Your House for Half the Money and Property Ladder, to name a few. A familiar and trusted name in the world of property, she writes for national newspapers and magazines and has published numerous books. She has also launched an online estate agency, Tapilo, and is an ambassador for Britain's largest tile specialist, Tops Tiles. Is that enough for you? Hopefully, because she's coming right up. Please, will you please give a huge welcome to Sarah Beattie.
Hello.
Lovely to see you. Take a seat.
Hello, everyone.
Take a seat, Sarah. Find yourself. These are lovely chairs, but they're quite square. You see,
Yes.
so you need to sort of. I've been doing all of this.
Slouching.
Slouching.
How
that's it.
disappointing.
And as a dancer, I should have a better back.
Yes.
Feel free to pop open a water.
Thank you.
'Cause
You
they're
all had some of this cool
we are
water.
saving the world
Very cool.
here at QuickBooks.
Yeah,
So, Sarah, great to
Hello.
see you. I feel like we've got so many friends in common, but we've never actually met until today. So lovely to see you. And growing up, I've read this. The guys have told me that you describe growing up with your family as crafty, entrepreneurial, but more crafts than entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Which, is that a really polite way of saying you all did a bit of wheeling, dealing inside, you all worked out between you guys? Or was it more craft, or was it more entrepreneurial? Which was it?
Well, I personally think the word entrepreneur is overused a little bit.
Okay.
'Cause I think an entrepreneur is Bill Gates. I would call myself a business owner. And so my parents were business owners as well, although they were self-sufficient. And I don't know if anyone here has tried to be self-sufficient, but it doesn't work. So that's mainly why it was not very successful, because they sort of had a go at self-sufficiency. I mean, you've got to be really committed to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And make your children drink the goat's milk rather than turn it into cheese and then freeze it in a chest freezer.
So, and you had goats.
We had
So
goats.
not everybody's got the goats to even try, but that's...
No, you need the goats. But then once one chest freezer's full of goat's cheese,
Yeah.
you then have to buy another chest freezer and fill that up with goat's cheese. And there eventually is too much goat's cheese.
Yeah, the
Super.
demand has succeeded
Yeah.
the supply.
But they had lots of other businesses as well. They made doll's house furniture and doll's houses, and
Yeah.
made children's toys. And my dad was an architect, so I was around someone who, I was around people who work for themselves. And I think working for yourself is culturally a very different thing to working for somebody else.
And quite obviously, that upbringing influenced the outlook that you had, or did it? Did it straight away, or did it not?
I think it did. I don't really like being told what to do much, in fact, at all. So that was a bit of a problem at school. And I think, ultimately, if you work for yourself, you don't have to be told what to do, but you do have to take the risk. So I always think if you work for yourself, you work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. But if you want to take a Wednesday off to go and have lunch with your dad, you can. And so and also, I guess, the advantage with being employed is you get sick pay and holiday pay, and the disadvantage is that you don't.
But was it quite straightforward? Because tell us about the getting into property, because as you say, your family did a lot of work and working for themselves, and that kind of influenced you a little bit. But getting into property, how did you get down that route?
Well, my dad was an architect, so he used to build extensions for people and things.
Yeah.
And then when I was 12, he sold our house and we moved into a caravan, and he built a new house. So I was around that house being built, and I guess I was around building sites all my childhood. So building was very familiar to me, and I understood building. And I like people and working out why people live the way they live. And so I guess developing, which we ended up doing, buildings are just a tool for living in, aren't they, really? And so making the tool work better was really instinctive for me. I thought I want to have my own business, and I'd like to create homes that work well for people.
And was that first on there? Because some people get to 16, 17, 18, and they've got a list of things, some of the jobs that they feel like their parents would like them to do, others that the university sort of pushes them towards. But for you, at what stage did property become, that's absolutely the thing that I've got the skills to do, I've got the backing to do, and this is actually something I can do?
Well, I guess I tried lots of things before. I had a window cleaning business, a sandwich making business, and I sold vacuum cleaners, which is very good for you to sell vacuum cleaners, because people make you feel silly, which is good for you.
Okay.
You
As in the demonstration?
Yeah,
right.
I could do a really good demonstration.
We've got 20 minutes, 21 seconds.
Perfect. But no, I think you learn much more from things you fail at than things you succeed at. You don't really learn from success, you learn from failure. And bounce back, that's a really amazing tool in life, to learn how to pick yourself up and move on with something else. So I had tried lots of businesses first, but I guess I think property was a business I knew and understood most.
Yeah.
So I was 19 when we started doing that. But I didn't go to university. I didn't have a very good relationship with education, really.
And that worked out all right.
Yeah.
Not to say that don't educate yourselves, but that's because I guess in the same way that when we had our panel on before, and they were talking about going into the unknown and actually, that scary thing. And I guess at 19, because there's plenty of small business owners in here that are starting things because they see a need or they would like to do it, but 19, that's the same kind of worry and anxiety that you might have, or actually, did you just go, 19, I can do anything? I've got that naivety of youth.
Well, you have less to risk because you don't have anyone to look after when you're 19. So in some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder, but I think taking the plunge, you only regret things in life you don't do, not things you do. So if anyone's ever wondering whether they should do something or not, or sitting on the fence, I think I've always had an attitude that when there's doubt, there's no doubt, you have to do it. And with any business, I've had so many business ideas over my life and started quite a few of them, but I've had so many, and I always think if you can tell people about it and argue why it's a good idea when they tell you it's not a good idea, that's a really good basis for thinking, I've got a good business here. Go to your most negative friend, tell them about it. When they say, well, that's not going to work because of this, this, and this. If you can go, well, it will because of this, this, and this, you're onto something, I think. That's
really strong. So tell us about television and at what point that came into play, because presumably you in property, it was all going quite well?
Yeah,
it was relatively well, and TV was a bonus. So what was the change, and what got you into that walk?
well, we'd had a building company for 10 years, and that was going well, that's good. And then I went to a hen party.
Yes.
And I met someone, and they said, what do you do? And I said, oh, I've got a building company. And I said, what do you do? And she was a potter. And I went, oh, that's nice. And the next day, her sister called me and said, you met my sister last night, and I work for a production company, and you want to come and screen test for this new show. And I was like,
wow.
yeah, all right. So I did. And then they offered it to me, and then I did it.
That's crazy.
I know.
Always go to the hen party.
Always. Do you know, I wasn't even going to go.
Well, that's the thing. You've got some other things to do. You don't want to wear a willy on your head. You've done that.
Yeah.
That was another time in your life.
Totally.
But this time...
Well, there we are. You see, that's why I think you have to always say yes to everything, do everything, because you never know what's around the corner. And I kind of think, I say to my kids now, you have to just say yes to everything. Even if you think it's rubbish, say yes, because you just don't know what's going to come out. And... yeah, so that was kind of amazing. But did it feel like,
because we now have a real association, we've done so much telework over the years, we have an association with you as a TV property personality. But for you at that time, did it feel like a breakthrough into a whole new career, or was it just, oh yeah, doing a bit of TV at the time?
No, it was really, I'll do a bit. I mean, I said, how much are you going to pay? And they told me, and I was like, I'm not doing it for that, it's rubbish. So then I was like, oh God. And then actually, that was when I rang my stepmother, and I went, I've been offered this thing, but I think I get to say no, because it's not paid very well. And and she said, you only regret things you don't do, not you do. And I was like, yeah. So I thought, well, I'll do it, and then, see what happens. And halfway through filming the first series, because I thought that when you film telly, you had like lorries blocking the road and a catering truck and a kind of hair and makeup department. And it was like a bloke with a camera and a sound man. In those days, you didn't even get sound anymore. Now it's just one bloke. But at the time, it was a guy with a camera and someone with a sound man and a director and that was it, 3 people. So halfway through the series, I said, obviously this probably isn't going to go on telly or anything. And they went, no, it is. And I went, what, really? Like, this isn't a student film. I thought this was like, they were like, no, this is actually going on telly. I was like, God. But
I would have been better.
Yeah. So who knows? I mean, who would have known? And then apparently, years later, I discovered that halfway through filming, the exec, they had this big meeting, and they said, look, none of the contributors are listening to her. They don't do what she says. So what should we do? And anyway, they said, well, you have to get rid of her. You just have to replace her with someone else. And then someone went, well, let's just make it with them all ignoring her. And that was Property Leather.
Wow.
Who would have known? Eh?
That's crazy. But for you, I mean, was it, because did one come after the other? Did the shows start rolling? Did it become...
yeah.
You were sort of sitting on a bit of a TV goldmine for you and the skill set that you had?
Yeah, I was lucky. It's about right time, right place. Everything in life is about right time, right place, isn't it? And so I was lucky in a way because it was when, before that, you had straightforward presenters, and it was the beginning of so-called experts. That's another ridiculous word, isn't it? I mean, expert. I know a little bit about houses, that's all. But anyway, so-called experts. Anyway, they had a, to be honest, so they didn't have to pay a researcher to research it.
Kind of the way, isn't it? You get bang for your buck with Sarah Bean. You really do.
That's the truth. So anyway, so yeah, I kind of happened to be there at the right time, at the right place. And yeah, it just rolled after that. Then they kept making, they said, well, we want another series. Then I couldn't get an agent because no one would have me because I wasn't known. And I said, well, I've got this series I'm making. I've got another series and I still don't have an agent. Anyway, I did eventually get an agent. But.
And did that become a bit of a struggle? You had your business partner as your husband.
Yeah, and my brother.
And your brother. So how did you start to juggle this other life that you didn't even sign up to, sort of fallen into, and the property?
Well, that was hard. And that's the thing I have learned over the years, is that if you say yes to everything, you take on too many things.
You just told everybody to say yes to everything.
I know, I just want to undo what I just said. Don't take any notice of anything I said.
Say no, don't
say no to everything, okay? So, the trouble is, if you do say yes to everything, you have to, my husband always says there's no such thing as multitasking, it's just called doing everything badly. I'm like, yeah, that probably is true, actually. So I just do everything badly, that's basically it. I think it is hard. So at that time, we were all having a slight changes in our lives anyway. And so my brother carried on developing, and my husband's an artist, so he was painting more. And I thought, well, I had a chat with my dad at that time, and he said, the thing is that you can always carry on developing later, and the TV thing might go away, so why don't you just do the TV thing for a bit, and when that goes away, you can go back to developing.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's sensible.
Seems true.
And then it didn't go away. So,
Dad,
anyway,
your fault.
Yeah, totally his fault.
But that's, I mean, the support network is such an important part. And I said at the start of the day that I feel like with a vision, with a strategy and setting your goals and a support network, you can do anything. So how important were your family and your close-knit friends and your colleagues in making sure that you stay grounded and actually thought, I can do all this stuff badly, but for a long time?
Yeah, oh my God, that's essential. Because the only thing that really matters is relationships, isn't it? Really. I think, when you lie on your deathbed, you're going to go, brilliant, I've got a big house and a big car, and I've got a massive pension fund. Actually, it won't matter. It's relationships. So your support network and your family and friends is sort of everything, and that's what you have to invest in. But that doesn't mean to say you have to give everything to them. Because I think you have to be happy as well. You have to be happy to be able to be a good friend or relative. And I think you need to be fulfilled. But I think it's about balance, isn't it? I think. So it's about making sure that you put enough focus into what you're doing and try really hard. But yeah, a support network is completely essential. And that keeps you, I think that also allows you to bounce back, because with your support, you can make mistakes and you can do it wrong, and you can get up and dust yourself off and carry on.
Have there been any moments, you talk about bounce back ability in the early days and the vacuuming, and we're so going to get you demoing for 10 minutes 44, and we're so going to get you doing that. But are there any moments in the more present time in your career, since you set up the business and things were going well, that either your family, your network helped you bounce back from any low points, or you and yourself thought, do you know what, I've done so well, I know in myself I can come back from this? Are there any examples any setbacks that you would like to share?
Yeah, there's so many. Where do you start? So many things I've done wrong. But you learn from things you do wrong. But yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm quite impatient and I'm quite easily bored. So I'm much better at setting up businesses than I am running businesses.
Okay.
And I think the thing I've really learned as you get older is to understand and know and admit your weaknesses is the greatest strength. So you have to, you know what you're good at, admit what you're good at, but don't pretend you can do everything, because no one can do everything. And I'm always suspicious of people we employ who say, no, I can do this and I can do that. And you say, can you do this? Can you do that? Yep, I can do that. Yep, I can do the accounts. Yep, I can do the marketing. Yep, I can do that. I can run it. Yep, I can do that. Yep, I can fix everything. You think, really? I mean, no one is good at everything. So really, really clever people are self-aware enough to be able to say, okay, this is what I do. This is what I do it well. And that's what it's taken me 47 years to learn, is to be able to say, actually, I'm good at this, and I'm not good at that. And all the failures I've made, the difficult times with different businesses, they've always been about not saying, yes, I'm really good at this, but I'm not good at that. You shouldn't underplay what you're good at, and you shouldn't overplay what you're bad at. You just should be honest about it.
Delegate. In 2004, you branched out and set up the dating website, My Single Friend. What's the story behind that? Was it like when my wife says that she's gutted she missed out on Tinder, and so now she's just constantly on it because she wants to help other friends, or that's at least what she tells me? Is that the idea? Yeah,
it's along those lines.
Yeah.
No, do you know, when we set up My Single Friend, it was the days before Tinder. I tell my children it was in 1402, and they go, really? God.
I couldn't believe it. Oh, God, it hurts.
Yeah. Anyway, so when we set up My Single Friend, it was really exciting because at the time, there were dating agencies. I don't suppose any of you are old enough to remember the time before the internet. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Didn't exist.
No, amazing. So dating agencies were these kind of weird places you went to and filled in lots of forms, and then I think it would have been ladies in half-rimmed spectacles and tweeds who would have gone, well, you might be suitable for, and they would have taken your details and then matched you up with someone suitable. And so I thought that's a really flippin' weird place to go, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest, you'd rather be single. And then there was one dating site that had started, which was Match before us, but you had to put yourself on, and I just thought, God, that's so embarrassing. No one would put yourself, you couldn't put yourself on a dating site because you either sound conceited or ugly, and both are not great, are they?
It's a harsh world.
It is harsh, but true. So yeah, then I had a friend who I kept fixing up with friends, and then one day I was talking to someone, I said, I've got this friend, and she said, oh God, my brother's single, and I went, oh gosh, so send me a photo of your brother, and I'll send you a photo of my friend, and then we'll kind of like subtly get them together. And I was thinking, how can I subtly do that? That's really difficult. And then I woke up in the night and went, Graham, I've had this idea. We could have a website, and we could all put our single friends on, and then we could fix them up with each other. And he said, that's probably actually a really good idea, which is rare, because normally he goes, oh, shut up and go back to sleep. So he said, no, that's a really good idea. And I was like, oh, okay. So then, basically, I had some old friends who were setting up a business, building websites, and I rang them and said, look, you set it up, I'll press it, let's launch it. We launched with one person on the site.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Well, no, we needed two. So the second person was a relief.
Okay, you found it.
No, honestly, I was paying my friends to go on. I was like, look, I'll take you out to supper if you go on it, please. Can you put your friends on it, and I'll pay. I'll take you out to supper. What do you want?
By any means.
And I remember when we got to page 2, there were 8 people on the first page. We got to page 2, and I was like, oh, thank God. At least we've got 9 people.
Yeah.
Right, that's good. So that was quite exciting. And I think what I hadn't realized at the time is that, launching a website from empty is quite a brave thing to do and very difficult to do. And now, lots of people have thought about copying no one could ever copy My Single Friend because it was viral. And so I think with any business, if you've got a USP that is uncopyable, then it's really good. But the world moved on, and Tinder came around, and then you could just swipe left, swipe right, get a bonk wherever you want.
But get a bonk, yeah, there's plenty of ways.
Is there one called getabonk.com? Because that's quite a good website.
There is now, copyright.
That's my URL.
No. We're going into a code business here.
Okay, heard it here first.
But I mean, kind of like television, when there's a public consciousness that you have that association with property, is the dating side of things, is that side of your career, is it complete, or is it on pause? Or you got more designs to...
Online businesses? Or
online dating businesses.
Online dating businesses.
Yeah, because we know it was a big website in that period, but there's no reason to say that you would stop it, or is it just dropped down the priority list?
It dropped down the priority list. We sold some of it, so I got on with other things. We still own a little tiny bit of it, but we sold a big chunk of it. So I always think with businesses, you can only really have your headlights in one direction at one time. And so if you have lots of businesses, you can shine your headlights on one business and you really focus on that, and you're like, yeah, that's it. That's the one you wake up in the night going, yes, I've thought of that. Oh, that's brilliant, that's brilliant. But meanwhile, the other businesses haven't got the headlights on it. It's difficult to focus on everything at the same time. So no, I guess we're focused elsewhere.
Would you have advice for those who are trying to juggle?
Lots of businesses.
And how any tips? Because it's difficult. It's innately difficult. But are there any tips that you found did work when you were like, okay, this is we were able to do these things at the same time?
I think the one thing I would say is that it's really useful to compartmentalize your life, and dare I say, tech is a great thing and a terrible thing as well, because it's very distracting. And when you've got your you're trying to work and you've got your email feeds coming through and it's going bing, 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 and you're not actually concentrating. You can spend all day replying to nonsense on emails, actually doing no work. I've got a big dream, and that is that everyone has to pay £1 to send an email. Wouldn't that be brilliant? Thank you. Heard it here first. When I'm dictator, that's coming in first.
It's a free-for-all now. Whichever way you want to go, the beanie party starts right here.
I'm thinking Prime Minister sounds quite rubbish. A dictator might be easier.
It might be strong.
Benevolent dictator.
Yeah. You don't want to be somewhere in the middle.
Nice one. But I think you can get very distracted with the stuff that's coming in. And so my biggest lesson, biggest tip to anyone would be to turn off your emails and to focus on the business that you'll say, right, on Wednesday morning, I'm going to do that job for 3 hours. And actually, in the tech world, it's now called a sprint. So I'm thinking, that's hilarious. So we've now got a word. We've evolved so far, we're actually going back to how you used to do it in 1975, and it's now called a sprint. Isn't that brilliant? I was like, that was just called work in the olden days.
Yeah.
People did in an office. Amazing.
Tech's got a term for anything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And
reinventing work.
That now we're telling kids all the time, make sure you compartmentalize your video games and your social media. And as adults, we should probably take much more notice of that. Graham, Mr.
Swift here.
And your husband and your business partner. How does that work? How do you do that? Talk about getting any work done. Because in my house, if I'm not doing the stuff that my wife needs me to do, I'm lazy. But it's my only office, so I find that a struggle.
I would never say that to my. Yes, I would.
I mean, sometimes she's most of the time she's right, but still, it's a difficult dynamic. Or has it? I mean, you've done it for a long time.
No, it is really hard. It is hard. I mean, it's sort of great and awful in two halves. I think it's fantastic in loads of ways, but it is hard. I mean, the advantage is that you work with your best friend and the person that you have. I mean, I've got a vested interest for him to. We've got a vested interest in each other being happy. But again, I think you have to compartmentalize your lives a bit as well. He always says to me, we need to have a board meeting on a Monday, and I'm like, what, in the kitchen or the sitting room? Where are we going to go? Or the office? But he is right, and I know he's right, because actually, sometimes I think if we wrote an agenda, then we'd stop, because we get distracted and we start talking about something completely different. Yeah. And it is hard, but it is also fabulous. I think if you can do it, then it's great. He says, look, I really want to talk to you about this contract. And I said, okay, can you tell me what I put the washing on? That is not. And he's like, no, stop putting the washing on. I want to talk to you about the contract. So I'm like, yeah, in a minute so that is bad, actually. That is difficult. It's a bit of a difficult kind of, you sort of work all the time.
You muddle it through.
But it's worked so far.
Muddling it for a long time.
Yeah, it's nearly 30 years. You get less for murder, don't you?
At one point, I wasn't sure if you were talking about how business works together or your marriage. Either way, keep at it.
Yes.
And who knows what you can achieve. Very quickly, because we haven't got much time. In fact, minus 23 seconds. I mean, we could talk for days. These guys have got a party to go to, so we can't. What's coming up? What's next? Are there other exciting things that you've got in the pipeline that you can't wait to?
Loads of things. There's so I've got a new series that's coming out at the end of March called Renovate, Don't Relocate, which is kind of a weird title, but basically it's about making your space work harder for you. A podcast series called Round the Houses, which came out last year.
Yes.
And I've moved to Somerset to a sheep farm. Mad.
Back to the goats.
Back to the goats.
Started.
We're building a house.
Oh, well done. Very quickly, if we haven't got time, but very quickly because hearing from you has been so helpful. Had a couple of tips. Any other tips that you would have, one or two, that you've been your mantra that really helped you for anybody who's a small business owner, works for themselves, if they want to call themselves an entrepreneur, the things that really helped you go through 30 years or 40 years of this amazing career? I think if you're going to start a business, make sure it's a business that you like doing. Don't get fixated on the fact you want to have a business per se or be an entrepreneur or whatever. Find a business that is something you like doing. Find what you like doing and turn what you like doing into a business, because if it isn't successful, you're having a nice time anyway, and it's more likely to be successful because you'll love it. So that would be
That would be a top tip. And secondly, take a leap. You know, you can always do it again, you know, if it goes horribly wrong.
I love what you said before about just don't let there be any doubt. The only thing that you'll regret is the thing you didn't do.
Yeah. And everything's possible, isn't it? You never know.
Well, talk about on brand and message.
Was that the brand? Oh,
that's
sorry.
No, say it. Say it.
Yeah.
Hashtag it for crying out loud.
I definitely remembered
You
that.
have been absolutely inspirational. Sarah Beanie, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Come on.
Bye-bye.
Sarah Beanie! Okay. It is almost time to say goodbye. And we started the day together, so it's only right we finish the day together. One last thing for me to do is to welcome back onto the stage my partner in crime, Vice President and Country Manager of the UK QuickBooks, Chris Evans. Should we do the... Yeah, see?
How cool was Sarah Beanie?
Very cool.
And awesome work. You've done the panel of entrepreneurs and amazing work
Pleasure.
with Sarah Beanie.
Absolute pleasure.
All right. So, we are the gap between the party.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing?
Good?
You ready to party? Come on. All right. So, let's recap on a couple of things, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. So, we said at the start of the day that it's our mission at QuickBooks to support your business and help you flourish and grow. QuickBooks Connect is all about being inspired and truly believing that anything is possible, taking the lessons learned from all the new massive connections that you've had today, and to continue to evolve and grow. And it's important to know we're here with you every single step of the way. I've got an announcement.
Go on.
All right, so we are pleased to announce that QuickBooks 2020 will be happening in March next year. Tickets on sale now, so please sign up and register if you're interested. And then just to close from me, before I hand it back to you, we hope you've enjoyed today. I'd like to say a massive thank you on behalf of everyone at the Intuit QuickBooks team, on behalf of our partners, our customers, and everyone who's joined us here today. We truly hope you've had a wonderful day, and thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Chris Evans, everyone.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure for me to be here as well because, like we said at the start of the day, we wanted to get that mantra out there that anything is possible. Having you all here, hopefully buying into that and taking that into your daily business and your work has been a real inspiration. It's been lovely to be up here and listen to our all-star guests and our panel and to just get that network from all of you. So thank you for having me along as well. And it doesn't end yet because we want to welcome you to the reception and the party. You deserve it. You don't sound excited. Put the beers away, guys. They don't want the gin. They don't want it. Okay, that's
Get the gin
that's
back
what
on.
we need,
All right,
because
we're
there is a barrel with your name on it, my darling. Just in the reception in the exhibit hall, just outside, there's going to be kicking off the festivities for the next hour or so, and then back here on the main stage, we'll be opening up the drinks as well, so don't wander too far.
Have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for joining us here at QuickBooks Connect London. Thank you so much.
Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you.